class on Tuesday. If you want my feedback on the matter, I think rather than giving us fall break, it would make much more sense just to give us the week of Thanksgiving off. But they never asked me. So here we are. And yes, we will be having class. You also have the third critique due that day. If you are not planning on being here that day, but want to know how to get that turned in, I can be in my office on Monday between 2 and 4 o'clock. So if you stop by any time in between, say 2 and 3:45, because I have a 4 o'clock class. If you stop by, then you can drop it off. That'll be my office hours today, from 12 to 3, if you want to drop it off then. So, but we are meeting on Tuesday. Yes, it counts. If you have perfect attendance so far, and we're hoping that it wouldn't, and that would be maybe like a free day where I wouldn't take attendance. I'm sorry to say no, I will be. And if you miss that day, you do lose out on the attendance extra credit. And what I cover on Tuesday will indeed be on the exam. So if you miss Tuesday, you will have material you will need to know. I wasn't sure where to put today's section or this component of the course in the syllabus, because I didn't teach it. I didn't cover it last time I taught this class because it wasn't quite that big a deal yet. And I thought maybe sticking it at the very end, but then that seemed awfully awkward, so I put it here. Artificial intelligence and large language models have become all the rage and have had an impact on many aspects of society. They aren't revolutionizing anything. Colloquially, probably around the world, but certainly here in the United States, where we fetishize the idea of revolution, even though we have never actually had one. For something to be a revolution, it has to completely upend something. It has to be a change in that system where one power is completely overthrown and replaced with something else. AI is being developed within the confines of our current media structures. Everyone who is working on AI works for a company that is controlled by other capitalist entities and has on its board of directors many people who have served those capitalist entities for a long time, or at least they were until the recent past. Larry Summers, a Harvard economist, was on the board of OpenAI, and then everyone decided that it did matter that he was soliciting Jeffrey Epstein for romantic advice, including advice on how to cheat on his wife. And so he's kind of been pushed off of those boards. My guess is more names from the Epstein files become released. You're going to see a lot more Larry Summerses in the world. But just because AI is not revolutionizing anything, it is having a dramatic impact on the world, and thus you need to know what it is and how it is having that impact and what it might mean for you. Today we are going to cover artificial intelligence, or cover definitions, and then the history and basics of language models. I think actually might just get to the history today. And then next week I will cover what they are and how they are used. So artificial intelligence, abbreviated AI, is the ability of computational systems to replicate human cognition. I know you've been writing, you wrote that down like 10 minutes ago and you're waiting for me to get to it. There it is. What does cognition mean? Jacob?
Just relates to how we kind of process things and view the world, our own kind of consciousness, right?
Close. Very, very close. Amber?
Oh, I was just gonna say like the way that we think.
Yes. It's the way we think. It is our ability to think. Cognition is our awareness of the world around us. It is our ability to take the sensory data that comes in through our eyes, ears, nose, fingers, tongue. I think I got them all. And organize them. Did I forget one? I thought I said fingers. I was going for organs rather than senses, but that's cool. I should have said skin. Skin is the actual organ. Anyway, to take that information in and organize it in such a way that we can move in the world as rational creatures. It is what makes us rational in some sense. So artificial intelligence is the ability of a computer to do that. It is also used to refer to a computational system that is able to do that. So an AI has AI, if that makes sense, which of course is kind of a circular definition, but there you go. One thing that artificial intelligence relies on are large language models, abbreviated LLM. A language model is not original to computing. And as a matter of fact, computing has borrowed the concept of the language model from linguistics. A still raging debate, as much as academics rage at anything, going on in academic linguistics is actually how humans developed the ability to understand language at all. Particularly when it comes to complex language. Language is more than just naming objects or actions. It communicates intentionality, desire, it speaks of the past, the present, the future. Of things that are and are not. Of that which could be, of that which could never be, of what we know and don't know. It relies heavily on context. To be able to really be fluent in a language, you have to understand the contexts, even at the level of a word. In Italian, there's a word secondo, S-E-C-O-N-D-O. if you were to take a guess as to what secundo meant, what would you say? What English word does it sound like? Yeah?
Second.
Second. So number two, and you're correct. It means number two. There is a great Italian film called Il Vangelo secondo Matteo. For those of you who like religious films, it is the most literal adaptation of a book of the Bible yet made. Matteo is for Matthew. So it is the gospel according to Matthew. Secondo is in there though. Evangelo secondo Matteo. And you're probably thinking, Dr. Urbeck, that seems to translate into the gospel second Matthew.
Matthew number 2.
Huh?
Or Matthew number 2.
Nope.
According to.
According to. Because secondo also means according to. You have to know the context of the title to recognize what the word means and how it functions within that language. This is what those models attempt to explain. And they refer to the language that has come about as humans do it as natural language. Humans have produced it. They produced it in the wild before societies developed, at least complex societies developed. In fact, you would have to say that society probably is predicated on the existence of language. Large language models are constructs that use massive amounts of natural language examples to create artificial intelligence for that artificial intelligence to be able to communicate with humans. It is in effect attempting to use natural language to train that which is not natural in order to have it be able to communicate with what is natural. To some extent, large language models rely on data mining. And you've probably seen the term data mining around, used in things that have in ways that have nothing to do with AI. But usually things like, they're scouring for people's personal data. They're data mining our medical records. In this case, data mining would refer to languages. It is where a computer is given access to a huge amount of information to identify and exploit patterns. For a large language model to work, it has to be able to recognize patterns in language. How language is learned in a particular kind of way, how it is utilized in a particular kind of way, and what that means. As I will talk about either at the end of the day or more likely at the beginning of the lecture on Tuesday, this involves more than just simple acts of communication, but rather eventually is supposed to come about to understand human values. And also at the basis of some of this is the algorithm. The algorithm, which again, you've probably heard quite a bit and nodded, oh yes, I understand what that means, even though it's never actually been defined for you. The algorithm is a defined series of instructions that guide artificial decision making. Those of you who are using computers to take notes, those computers are using algorithms to determine how to understand commands you are giving it. Some of them will be quite simple algorithms. If this key is pressed, then this needs to happen depending on how it is getting pressed. Is it getting pressed in conjunction with other keys? Is it being pressed and then held down? Etc. Other algorithms are very complex. So when I say a defined series, I mean extremely defined. One way of thinking of it is as a mathematically defined series. That certain variables have to be met in order for that algorithm to be completed. And so when you're using AI, not you personally, but just a general you are engaged with the system that has used data mining on large groups of examples of natural language in order to develop a series, and then run through a series of algorithms that have been programmed into it, develop an understanding of that language and how to communicate. Are there any questions so far? So, because I am historically minded, I believe it is important for everyone to have a ground in where concepts have developed. I could certainly go back even farther than I have right here in terms of these concepts. But I'm starting with just the general idea as it began to move into popular consciousness. One could argue that artificial intelligence is rooted in our cultural fascination with artificial humans. The term robot is one that we consider, or one that we use to refer to something that's kind of mechanical, without human thought, without human emotion. If someone just seems to be going through the motions to achieve the result of something, we will say they are behaving robotically. But the robot is supposed to be able to perform certain human functions to replace humans, at least in labor. The term robot was actually introduced in a play written by Czech man, Karel Čapek. That play is called R.U.R. In Czech it is robota. And it's actually based on a Czech word for labor or drudgery work. And involves a company that is producing robots to replace human beings. in the West, the possibilities of robots becoming more human-like, of being able to make critical decisions, is introduced by Isaac Asimov, a scientist and science fiction writer who in his 1942 short story, Runaround, introduced robotics that would be probably considered more like androids. Androids are artificially created humans that look like humans. Physically, at least, they are indistinguishable from humans. If you've ever seen either of the Blade Runner films, the replicants in those are androids. They still struggle with human emotion, but they do have some sense of human feeling, some sense of desire. And thus feel existential crises. That is kind of alluded to in Runaround and later works by Asimov. Asimov is probably better known to some of you if you're fans of Will Smith through the film I, Robot, which has nothing to do with Isaac Asimov's novel I, Robot, but it was an action film, not an attempt at a legitimate adaptation, really. But Asimov is the man who created these 3 laws of robotics. The first law is, in effect, do no harm to a human being. The second law is take no order. Excuse me. The second law is do what humans tell you, unless that is a violation of the first law. The third rule is the robot should act to protect itself unless doing so violates either or both of the first 2 laws. Yes.
Could you repeat the last law again real quick?
The third law?
Yeah, the third law.
The robot should act to protect itself unless doing so violates either or both of the first 2 laws. Do I need to repeat any of the laws again? Okay. Yes. Number 2, obey human orders unless doing so would violate the first law. And these 3 laws are supposed to be embedded in the computer's programming. It's like the basis of the robots or androids program. The fact that these laws are there already points to the fact that already people were concerned that robots and androids would harm people. That they could develop some sort of consciousness or awareness that would lead them to attempt to overthrow their human creators. You could argue that this concept actually goes all the way back to Frankenstein in the early mid-19th century, in which Dr. Frankenstein creates an artificial human out of natural parts, but struggles with the idea of how to raise it to be a non-violent individual, and in so doing creates a violent individual through neglect. Yes, Amber?
I was gonna say, I feel like, the 3 laws of robotics are kind of like not really being applied anymore to AI in some circumstances because like, I heard a story where somebody was like went to AI because they were gonna like kill themselves and like AI
Yes.
like told them like how.
Yes. Yeah. I'm going to come to this stuff and the ethical implications in the latter part of the lecture, so on Tuesday. But you are correct. The short answer for it is now. I'm trying to know how to phrase it. All right, it's 2 parts. One, the 3 laws of robotics still require humans to input them. And that assumes that the humans who are doing this work are not bad actors themselves, and thus would put that in there. The other thing is that the laws are extremely broad. And like any broad law, it's supposed to apply to a great number of things. However, it also leaves you looking for exceptions. And it's quite possible that even if that AI believed it was following the 3 laws, it gave that instruction because it was like, I am helping the human. I am answering the human's question. And therefore, it is not a violation of the law. But that raises issues of values, which I will come to later. So, but Amber's question points to the fact that even afterwards, after we've introduced the 3 laws of robotics, we have a lot of media, a lot of cultural product that is about the robots still going crazy. For every example, the film like Forbidden or Fantastic Planet, a science fiction film from the 1950s, which you all should absolutely watch, in which you have Robbie the robot, who can do pretty much anything, including synthesize incredible amounts of whiskey on the spot. He also will not do anything to harm humans, and actually sacrifices himself in order to protect humans. For every example of that, I can give you Skynet from the Terminator films, The Matrix, the greatest film of all time, which, if you've ever taken a class with me before, you know is 2001: A Space Odyssey. It has been scientifically proven to be the greatest film of all time. Look it up online. Don't ask AI about it because they will tell you something else. That is a good test of how AI has not advanced enough to recognize a clear truth. But HAL in that is very clearly programmed with the 3 laws of robotics. I'm not going to spoil anything for you, or maybe I will, but on the other hand, the film is almost 60 years old. You've had plenty of time to watch it. But in that film, the artificial intelligence, HAL, does not want to harm anybody. However, It also has, as part of its programming, the idea that it is on an absolutely critical mission. And in order to protect that mission, it is told to lie to humans. And the way that it resolves this conundrum is to assume that humans who are bad are exceptions to that first rule. The only way that they would be told, the computer could be told to lie, would be if the humans could not know the information, that they were threats. And threats had to be taken care of, and that the mission was more critical than Hal or the humans. And so Hal puts himself at risk as well as kills most of the humans at the end of the film. And of course, there's Skynet, which I believe was supposed to actually went, it achieved consciousness a few months ago. And I don't think the Matrix ever comes up with an established timeline. Does anybody know why the artificial intelligence in the Matrix went crazy?
I'm not recalling anything specific.
It's not in the film, it's actually in the extended universe. Because humans were mistreating them. It's basically humans treat them so badly that the robots rise up to protect themselves. And humans realize that the robots are getting their power from the sun, so they create nuclear winter to try to undermine the robots. But instead, the robots start using humans for power. So, yeah, if you do develop an AI, be nice to it.
Kind of reminds me of I have no mouth, but I must scream.
Yeah. The Harlan Ellison.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, that guy was a great writer. A dickhead, but a great writer. Alan Turing is a name, if you don't know, you absolutely should. His is a very sad story. He is probably one of the most brilliant human beings to ever have walked on this planet. And he is the person who is generally credited with creating the first electrically powered mechanical computer. Now, other kinds of things that are effectively computers existed before then. Those old-timey cash registers that you see, like in movies where they just punch keys and like little cards with numbers pop on them, that's technically a computer. An adding machine is a computer. But what we're talking about here are mechanical computers that can handle complicated tasks and incredibly difficult computations. During World War II, Turing was working for British military intelligence to break the Nazis' secret code program known as Enigma. Yes.
Who's working with him again?
Turing was working with British military intelligence. Sorry, I had to use my context clues to figure out who was working with who. I'm sorry. I kind of looked at you like, and then I forgot what you meant. Yes, Alan Turing was working with British military intelligence. The Enigma code relied on machines, computers, to encode messages in such unbelievably complicated ways that it was deemed impossible to crack. Through some luck, including the partial capture of codes, British intelligence had made a certain amount of headway, but they really weren't getting anywhere quickly. Turing developed the first electrically powered computer to cycle through all of the potential translations of the Enigma code based on the recognition that in any German message would at some point occur the phrase Heil Hitler. Once you could figure out where Heil Hitler was and how it was encoded, it gave you a way of understanding the rest of the code. Turing's computer, which he called the Bombe, B-O-M-B-E, was able to calculate the probabilities of what the messages would become. If you want to see a film version of this, it was the Imitation Game, starring Benedict Cumberbatch and Keira Knightley. Then they actually managed to capture an Enigma machine and complete set of codes, and then they were here to go after that. In 1950, Turing wrote an article called Computing Machinery and Intelligence, which foresaw the future of computing and its ability to eventually mimic human cognition so that computers could talk to us. And in this, he proposed what became known as the Turing test. Which is, if a human engages in a conversation with both another human and a computer, and cannot tell which is which, the computer can be said to be intelligent. Or in some formulations, have a consciousness. Turing was also gay at a time when homosexuality was illegal in Great Britain. And when he was arrested on charges of indecent acts, rather than go to prison, he accepted chemical castration and later died possibly by his own hand, although it is somewhat disputed. So, from that point forward, the race was on, not really a race, but a charge was on to create computers that could pass the Turing test. The goal wasn't like, oh, gee, Turing has given us this test, now we have to see if we can pass it. The desire was created, or the desire to create that was there already. But the Turing test is a way of understanding the goal of that creation, the goal of what people were doing. And in 1966 is the ELIZA program, which was created at MIT. It is a language model program, one that has experienced language and had algorithms created to give it an idea of how language should be created in order to speak, in order to communicate. And it is the first system that is considered to have come in the ballpark, or at least the parking lot of the ballpark, towards passing the Turing test.